Speaking of mommy, holy mackerel. Okay, the best match, I will keep you in suspense no further. The best match of WrestleMania Night 1 was the girls' match. I'm not talking about the girls' tag team four-way fiasco. I'm talking about the actual girls' wrestling match that took place. Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. This not only was several levels above any other women's match mostly in WWE or in AEW, this was above 80% of the men's matches in any company. And they both look like wrestlers. They look like stars. They can work. They're believable. They got personality. Both of them are different, so you can easily tell them apart. They laid their shit in. It was a back and forth struggle. It was not smooth by design. They were working stiff and struggling to make a contest and a fight and show emotion. And for anybody who thinks I don't like women's wrestling, no, I don't like bad women's wrestling, which is what most of it is. But again, I say this was not only better than all of the other girls' matches, but most of the guys' matches. Because you had the combination of everything. There's no little fucking 5 foot tall, 98 pound made up Barbie doll twit. No fancy fucking gymnastics and round offs and tumbling. No girly punches. Both these girls, the ultimate compliment that was ever given in the wrestling business to any of the female performers, they work like guys. That's a positive. That's a plus. And that's what they did. And this match was incredible. And they took us on a ride. Some of those wicked German suplexes, and especially Rhea hit one where Charlotte went face first. And since the only thing in this match that didn't make sense was after Charlotte got planted face first, she was back up moments later on offense. Apparently, she was going for the full flip and didn't quite make it. And they didn't change with and go with the flow there. But, I mean...
She skinned her nose.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised she didn't break it. They were each hitting their big moves. You know, Charlotte hits the moonsault off the top to the floor. Rhea hits the riptide. Rhea flips her shit and gets a standing cloverleaf, and Charlotte gets the ropes. And the more this went on, you could also tell the fans were more and more solidly behind Rhea. The idea she would win. They wanted to see a title change. And it wasn't because Charlotte was not being a good babyface. It was because they wanted to see Rhea win and they wanted to see a title change. And so when they got into the yay boo, the people were going crazy, but Rhea's punches were the yay and Charlotte's were the boo. And that's why I'm saying they've got to decide in the office there whether they keep Mommy and Dominic and Mommy and the Judgment Day, for that matter, together for an okay upper middle card type of group, or whether they realize that they may have the biggest female star that they've had in the past 20 years on their fucking hands now and concentrate on her.
And Charlotte needs to be a heel.
And well, here's the thing. I don't care if they switch Charlotte heel. They can do whatever they want. But the point is, the people have clearly shown in this instance, it's not that they're rioting against Charlotte being a babyface against anybody. It's that they picked Rhea here. And so and that's why I think Charlotte was sitting there when the match was over, smiling and looking up like, yeah, you got me, because they still want her to be a babyface. If they'd wanted her to switch heel, she'd have bitched and griped about it. But she kind of gave I'm accepting this because she's earned my respect type of thing, so Charlotte can be a babyface against somebody else. But again, if they're smart, they won't rematch this on free television, and they won't rematch it at all right away, but they will build. I think SummerSlam's quick. Is it Survivor Series? Whatever the case, Royal Rumble. now we need a rematch. And this time, Rhea going in as champion and the clear babyface. And by then, Charlotte may very well be a heel again. And now you got a brand new look, and do that fucking match again. And that would be a selling point for a pay-per-view, unlike 98% of all the other women's matches in the business. That rematch belongs on pay-per-view.
I'd make that one of the main events of SummerSlam. Ripley, Charlotte 3.
It's a little quick. May, June, July. It's 3 months.
It is July now. Yeah, I mean, I still think of it as the end of August. You're right about that.
It is in July this year, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm saying when I was a kid, it was the end of August.
Okay, it was August. Yeah, but still 3 months, 4 months. Let's milk it a little bit. But anyway, the match back and forth. And finally, the finish was they were fighting up on top, trying to get an advantage, and Rhea dropped Charlotte face first on the top of those big square posts with the LED lights and everything, and then sat up on top and muscled her into the riptide position, or that pump handle slam thing she does, and did that off the ropes, boom, right on the back of Charlotte's head, 1, 2, 3. And again, just, wow, that, if you didn't see so many frilly, silly, girly girls matches with these diminutive pixies that just muddle everything up and muddy the water, this is the kind of women's wrestling that people will pay to see. And that's why I'm saying you find your Ripley, you find your Charlotte, you find a Bianca and maybe a Becky with the personality. She doesn't have the size, but she's got the mouth. And you focus on a small handful of the best in the business and just feed them on television whenever they need to wrestle. Feed them miscellaneous girls that you can find anywhere. And then match up your stars on pay-per-view, and you've got women's wrestling people will pay to see. When it has to be half of the whole goddamn show constantly, then it doesn't do a match like this any service, because people like me go, goddamn, I'd like to see some fucking violence and brutality in my wrestling, not a bunch of girls cheerleaders. This was violent and brutal.
This was an excellent match. This was probably the greatest women's match to ever take place in North America. Rhea Ripley, you always say about MJF, a generational talent. Rhea Ripley's a generational talent.
Yeah.
Watch the way she sells, the way she does power moves.
Facial reactions.
That one, what spot was it? The DDT she almost took on the top of her head, and she went over, but she shot her body over. I mean, the impact of it. I don't even know how to describe it, as you could tell. But Rhea Ripley is so good. I think Charlotte's best served as a heel, because I think fans are predisposed. They want to boo her.
Yeah.
You got to give them a reason to. A couple of years ago, our favorite match at WrestleMania was Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. This was worlds better than that match.
That was the pandemic.
That was the pandemic, right? Yeah. No crowd.
And the reason why we liked that, as I recall, was because that was the only match on the card where they actually made having no people in the building work for them and worked snug, and you could hear the smack of the meat in the flesh when they were hitting each other, and they didn't go off kilter and try to have a ridiculous fight that looks goofy when there's nobody around. And in this case, it was a completely different match, much better. Obviously, not only because there were people and because they were given more time, but also because Rhea Ripley's 3 years better. But can't say enough good about this one, and I will watch them wrestle any fucking time.
And I can't wait again to see Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, because I think they're great together. But when I get so, not even mad, just frustrated with the AEW women's division, which at times is like Jamie Hayter and a bunch of people. And I wish Hayter was over here for all this. The problem is, there's too many women, it seems like, in wrestling that decided, hey, I want to be wrestlers. And they go in the back, they put on their trunks, they pull it up so their ass is hanging out, and then they skip to the ring, and they just do little sequences or little things that have nothing to do with wrestling, and they have no wrestling instincts. They're just doing wrestling. I'm doing wrestling now. And then you see something like this, which is as good as it gets. And it's not like just this is WrestleMania, the biggest stage, big match, great opponent. Rhea Ripley's always great. Charlotte's really good. Sometimes she's not great, but she's really good. Bianca Belair is great, but then you see like that's why I always said AEW shouldn't have even had a women's division. They didn't have the people to staff it. You didn't have the people. Here they got the people, and the top people here, Rhea Ripley especially, is as good as it gets ever in North America.
And that's, another thing I've said is that it drags down the overall average quality of your show when you specifically go out there to, as the WWE often does, Tony is not that bad because he doesn't have enough of them, but when you're trying to make half the men's matches and half the card women's matches, there are a lot better male talents and more of them in the wrestling business than there are female talents. So if you're going for the absolute best talent regardless of gender, then it'd probably be about 85-15. But when you try to make it 50-50, then you've left off 35% of the fucking guys that would be better than the 35% of the girls you brought in. And then you've diluted your whole fucking show. So it doesn't have to all be equal. Female wrestling should still be an attraction, something different from the normal fare. Then it would stand out more, and then you could concentrate on the people that could really do it rather than trying to fill the fucking shoes once you brought them all home from the shoe store. You don't need that many to begin with.
Yeah, and I like classic All Japan women's wrestling. All those women went through heavy training to get to where they were. It wasn't just like anyone became a wrestler. You had to really go through the system, go through the ringer, and prove it.
Oh, good. It wouldn't even be legal to do in this country to train women or anybody the way they trained those women back then. It'd be some kind of lawsuit. So anyway,